what is the difference between a good runner, somebody who's got a certain level of ability, a certain level of talent, and then what separates the people who are winning races, who are, winning some of the big races, who go on to make running a professional career. And I think it all boils down to what separates the good from the great in any discipline, whether it's business, whether it's basketball, whether it's journalism, whether it's acting, whatever you want to talk about. That's the great thing, because what separates the good from a great remains the same in absolutely everything. And it's the attention to detail. It's the falling in love with the parts of the puzzle that actually are not very sexy. They're very repetitive, very, very monotonous. Like if I look at my training program, whether it's over a week, whether it's over a month, whether it's over an entire schedule, or whether it's over a 1, 3, 5 year period, it looks very similar. There's very, very little difference between the interval sessions that I was doing 5 years ago and the interval sessions I'm doing now. Very little difference between the uphill sessions, the speed sessions, the sprint sessions, the long runs. It's all very, very similar. It's just the consistency over many months, over many years, that separates the great and those who are able to win races, become professional runners, and those who will only ever be good amateurs, good recreational athletes. And there's kind of thinking about your game, thinking about how can I be better, all the time thinking about how can I be better, how can I be better than I was last week, than I was last month, than I was last year. Of course, constantly analyzing your game and thinking how can I improve. But also, with that reflection is also planning, is also strategy in future. What's worked for me so far? What do I need to do more of? What do I need to kind of draw back and do less of? What's working for me? And, as we've talked about recently, and in the comments we've talked about, what works for one person won't necessarily work for another. So you'll hear a lot of runners talk, in order to, volume is a big question, whether you're training for an ultramarathon, a marathon, 10K, volume, total volume in the week, total volume in the training schedule will always be a hot debated topic within running. And for me, I've talked about this a lot, but it'll always come down that people want to show off the volume that they're doing. So run 100, hello, you can make an appearance. Here you go. He's often talking about total volume, Rocky the Cat. Total volume of your week is hot debated topic because people like round numbers. So people think in order to be a great marathon runner, you need to be running 100 miles a week. In order to be a great ultra marathon runner, you need to be doing 100 plus miles a week. When does it stop? And why is it such a round number? It's always 100 miles a week, and then you'll get some people pushing it. And essentially, when you look at this over a long period of time, a decade or 2 decades, what you'll get is somebody will hit peak performance, and it will be off the back of a heavy training load, heavy volume, and then they'll sharpen stuff up towards the last 4 or 5 weeks, faster sessions, and then it'll work for them. And then everybody will think that the secret lies in that heavy volume. It's not the case. What works for one person won't necessarily work for you. I've always worked on low volume, because when I've taken it to higher volume and when I've tried to run 100 miles plus a week, I get injured. And a lot of that comes because I'm very competitive with myself. So I need to kind of hold myself back. And the way I've learned to hold myself back is that I'll spend a lot of time on the bike. And so overall training volume, overall time in zone 1 and zone 2 is very high. So that aerobic capacity is being developed, constantly being developed over the years. But then when it's the sharper stuff, the interval sessions, the faster training sessions, the faster long runs, that's always done on fresh legs, because I'm not doing the same volume that everybody else is doing. And often I'll survive on 80 kilometers a week, which is only 50 miles a week, 100 kilometers a week, 120 kilometers a week in my higher phases of a training session. But I'll be doing 10, 15 hours a week on the bike. And the falling in love, getting back to the point of the video, the falling in love with the process, the falling in love with the monotony, the falling in love with the repetitiveness of distance running, which the entire kind of concept of distance running is repetitive, but falling in love with that means that you like and love the recovery runs. You love the easy runs. You love getting stuck in and tasting blood on the interval sessions. You love going long, even if that's on your own, or if it's with a group, you love it. You love the process of, I can go a bit longer this week, and I can go a bit faster this week, and it's still in my zone 2. It's still within my capacity. I'm not pushing myself into the red, and therefore I could probably hold this in the race as well. It's falling in love with that stuff. It's falling in love with the stretching. It's falling in love with the yoga, the mobility. It's falling in love with, getting on the bike and being on the bike 4 or 5 hours. It's getting on the bike regularly so that you're, for me, it's always been, okay, let's specialize on, my strength, let's add to my strength, which is uphill running, and let's make me a stronger uphill running, which has meant like being on the bike a lot and doing a lot of uphill runs, a lot of uphill interval sessions, a lot of uphill sprinting. So I'm constantly developing those muscles for uphill running, whether I'm on the bike or I'm sprinting uphill or I'm doing an interval session uphill or it's just a long, steady uphill running. But I still love that. I still love that. And you know, whether it's a chicken and egg thing, whether I loved it anyway, I just love doing more of it, or whether I've learned to love it, and this depends on you, yeah? So whether you've learned to love it or whether you already loved it and therefore you do more of it, doesn't really matter. What matters is that you know that process is the part that you need to fall in love with in order to become very, very good or great at what you're doing in running. It's super important because it's easy to want to do the exciting stuff in whatever you're doing, whether you're painting pictures, whether you're building a business, whether you're learning to become a great runner. It's easy to do the exciting stuff. And I love an interval session. I love tasting blood. I love going hard on the hills. I love the kind of the heavy speed sessions as well as I love the long runs. The recovery runs and the easy runs, not as much like in the beginning, not as much. It's kind of like, it's the discipline of going out there and not putting too much pressure on the body, going quite easy on the body and therefore recovering, which is the purpose. So getting to your front door, I'm thinking, what is the purpose of this run? The purpose is to recover. So when I get back from this run, I want my legs to feel fresher than they do right now. So I'm gonna walk for the first 5 minutes, just test myself out. How do I feel? How do my legs feel? My Achilles tight from the last interval session. What do I need to straighten out in this session? There might be some stretching along the way. It might not be a simple run. It might be a super slow run at 10 minutes per mile or 6 minutes per kilometer, but you get it done and you feel a bit better. So tomorrow's easy run is that much better and you feel fresher. And therefore the day after that, when it comes to the interval run or the long run, you're ready to hit it hard. And that's what it's all about. You're able to hit those, the sessions that really matter, where you get the most super compensation, the most improvement, the interval session, the long run. You're able to hit those hard because you've got the discipline to do all the stuff that's maybe not as exciting, that's monotonous, it's repetitive, it's unsexy, but you're able to do all that because you realize that takes you to the stuff that really makes the difference. That's the big difference between good and great, I think, in running. Of course, there's an element of talent there, but what I'll always say this, what I'm most proud about running and how far I've got is that I don't have that much natural ability. So I was good at running as a kid, but only because I'd built up an endurance base on the football field. Just crazy about football, dreamt about being a footballer all my junior life until being basically 16 years old. And so by the time I'd reached high school at 11, I'd already built this massive endurance base. If you're playing sport all year round, and that took me into running, and I just naturally had an edge over everybody else because I'd been running like a crazy headless chicken for the last sort of 7 years of my life. So I didn't have much natural ability, but I loved the work. And if you fall in love with the work and you've got that, then that work ethic, you're unstoppable. And those skills are the most important to transfer over to whatever you're doing. So yeah, if you get anything from that, the difference between good and great is you fall in love with stuff that's monotonous, that's repetitive, that's not sexy, but it gets you to where you want to be.